Hello everyone and welcome to an amazing game from the Hastings tournament of 1974, 73 to 74. It started in December and then went on into January of 74. Mikhail faces none other than English Grandmaster Michael Franje Tuđmana, and although later on he will become an international master and a grandmaster in 1973 or in 74, he was not yet a titled player. He will get his international master title in 75 and the grandmaster title in 77, but he was already incredibly strong. And later on he will serve as a second to Viktor Korchnoi in his World Chess Championship matches against Anatoly Karpov in 1978 and 1981. So, you know, he was, and also he was a tax accountant aside from being a chess player. And this game, well, it perfectly illustrates how even if black plays pawn to a6 in the Sicilian and prevents white from, you know, planting a knight or a bishop or something on b5, it doesn't necessarily exclude the possibility you know, of having a knight on b5. That's basically the idea of this game. And it just shows you how much theory there is, you know, in chess, how much theory there was in chess even back in 1973. And yeah, it's a crazy game. You guys will love it, and I think I think you guys, after, you know, watching a couple of games by Tal playing the bishop to g5 line against the Najdorf, will also start playing it yourselves. I mean, after seeing this game, I am shifting to bishop g5 against the Najdorf. So let's see it. Pawn to e4. Okay, Michael replies with pawn to c5. He goes for the Sicilian defense. Sorry about that. We have pawn knight to f3, pawn to d6, and pawn to d4. Okay, everything, you know, pretty standard. Captures. We have knight to f6 and knight to c3. In terms of strength, Tal also won this tournament. He was actually a shared first place with 3 other people. He won it with Laszlo Zabot, Jan Timan, and Gennady Kuzmin. So all of them won with 4 out of 15, because you know, back then they didn't really care, you know, if okay, a lot of people shared first place, we have to have tie breaks. No, it's very, very rare, you know, that people had tie breaks. Okay, you know, 4 people shared first place, so 4 people shared first place. Nothing spectacular happening. So okay, pawn to a6. We have the Najdorf Sicilian, and Tal opts for bishop to g5. Again, the main line against the Najdorf, even today, e6, pawn to f4, and knight b to d7. We have queen to f3, queen to c7, and castles queenside, and pawn to b5. When you look at this, you know, classical variations, you know, the most played lines, it's you know, almost as if you're, you know, listening to classical music. There's just something about these lines. And here, bishop to d3 nowadays is the top move, as the engine suggested, so of course everyone plays it. But, you know, in the olden days, pawn to e5 was played, also some other very nice ideas. Pawn to a3 is also still popular, stopping pawn to b4. But in this game, Tal went for the immediate bishop captures on b5. Just for fun, I will show you e5, because Alexander Koblenz also mentions it in the book, as it has been studied a lot in those days. Bishop to b7, and now Tal had the idea of going queen to h3, but you could also go knight captures on e6 right away. Basically, you could go queen h3 and then knight captures on e6, or captures on e6, and then, because you're also threatening, knight captures on c7 with check. So after f captures, queen to h3, you get a really, really difficult position to assess. I mean, if you don't know what you're dealing with. Captures, bishop to e7, and now what do you play? Look at this, knight captures on b5. White can continue happily sacrificing. A captures, bishop captures, and yes, it's equal, but it's only equal if black plays the best possible moves. And I mean, look at this position. You know, you're thinking about all sorts of ideas, and the bishop to e4 is the strongest move for black. You're already threatening checkmate here, and only after pawn to c3, now you have to do something, because, I mean, captures is coming, also captures, the knight here is pinned, so you're going to capture on f6 and then capture on d7. So castles queenside, and, I mean, complete mess of a position. Objectively, it's equal, but if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're going to burn a lot of time calculating all of this out. But okay, it was known at the time. Tal played bishop captures on b5. And also something that Alexander Koblenz mentions that, okay, you played a6. Also, there's a pawn on b5 as well, but you're not stopping Tal from planting a knight on b5. We have a captures on b5 and knight d captures on b5. If you're thinking about knight c captures on b5 to have more active knights, this knight is irrelevant here, also guarding the a2 pawn, so it's better to capture with the d knight, and also you're opening up the d file for the rook. And here we have queen to b8. Queen to b6 also, I mean, this was still all very well known at the time. If queen to b6, you will strike with e5, and again, you have problems here. If bishop, sorry, not rook to b8, if bishop to b7, the queen can come to e2, and again, very, very easy for black to make a mistake. You have to play pawn to h6 just to be able to continue the game. And even after that, for example, bishop captures, g captures, you'll play knight captures on d6 with check, bishop captures, rook captures, you attack the queen. And again, only one move that is good for black, that is bishop to c6. Not, a move that comes to mind right away, but you have to improve that knight on d7 if you are to survive this position. So, okay, after knight d captures on b5, queen to b8 was played. This was, again, the best possible move. And now Tal strikes with pawn to e5. Now, it's not that big of a deal as the rook on a8 is defended. So, bishop to b7, and Tal goes queen to e2. We have d captures on e5, queen to c4, now threatening knight to c7 check. And the question is what to play here. You can play bishop to e7 or bishop to c5. That's the only way to do it. You have to free up the f8 square for the king. And in the game, bishop to c5 was played. But even in the book, I mean, this is still all very analyzed territory and was back in 1974. What if knight to c5? What is the idea if black goes for knight to c5? Now you don't have knight to c7 check. But you do have captures on e5, and after bishop to d5 challenging your queen, you will give up the rook. Rook captures on d5, and after knight captures and knight captures, now again you're threatening knight to c7 check. E captures on d5, and now queen captures, and you cannot capture on b5 as the rook on a8 is hanging. So let's say rook to a6, and now you go rook to d1, threatening to give up the queen for a nice checkmate on d8. And okay, the game maybe continues, but for black has to play f6 to just be able to enjoy a worse position. That's all there is to it. So after queen to c4, bishop to c5 is the only way to continue. So this is still, a battle of theory. And now Tal captures on f6. We have g captures on f6 and rook captures on d7, sacrificing the exchange. But, keeping the king in the center, it is well worth it. Now, of course, you're not going to capture right away and allow queen captures on c5. So bishop e3 check, king to b1, and king captures on d7. Now, if you count the pieces on the board, Tal is down a full rook. But it doesn't matter if no price is too high to pay for the scalp of your opponent's king. Rook to d1 check, and now look at this position. It's a really beautiful one because many people have been in this situation with black, and all of them, 100% of them, did not find the correct idea. I think there are some 8 games in the database that I'm using, so probably 80 games, altogether, maybe even 800 if you count, Soviet games that were never, that never entered the database. But what would you play here? How would you defend against rook to d1? It's a very interesting position. King to e7 is the only move. That is the only move that holds the position. But everyone, literally everyone, plays bishop to d4 in this position, and so did Mikhail Stean. And also there is one game where king to e8 was played. It was played by Vitolins versus Anikaev in Riga 1973 prior to this game, and Vitolins won a very nice game. And Vitolins was a Latvian grandmaster who also basically created this entire line with bishop captures on d1 on b5, and he sort of championed it, and Tal was merely taking remarks from Vitolins to play this entire game. Tal even included this game in a magazine he was sort of authoring. It was called Magazine 64, and he included this game, but he also mentioned that he feels really bad and ashamed about including this game because every line in this game has been already worked out by Vitolins. Tal was merely using his instructions as a manual on how to continue this attack. But okay, if king to e8, as was played in Vitolin's game, knight to c7 check, and after king to f8, now you go for f captures on e5. And in the game, rook a5 was played, so you can play pretty much whatever you want, but he captures on f6, and you have a completely winning position. Not much you can do here. For example, rook to c5 seems like you're doing a great job. All of a sudden, queen to d8, and imagine you capture with the rook. Here comes queen to d8. You give up the queen, and then rook captures will be checkmate due to the beautiful pawn on f6. So after rook d1, bishop to d4 was played. And yes, I did mention king to e7. The reason why it's the only move that does not lose on the spot is that you have to allow a lot of windmill action. And what I mean by this is that after queen b4 check and king to e8, knight to d6 check, look at this. You either go under the mask of the rook or under the mask of the queen, and you have to play king to f8. And now there are many good discoveries, but they are essential if you are to survive. Now white can choose between capturing the bishop on b7, or you can even go knight f5 check, king g8, you can capture on e3. And now still very difficult for black to continue. Black has to be, engine precise. Only bishop to c6 allows him to continue, because if you allow f5 and the queen to enter the game this way, it's all over. So forcing a queen trade, or not forcing, but not allowing white to play pawn to f5 is the way to go. So after rook to d1 check, bishop to d4, for some reason the move that everyone plays, probably because they don't know all of the ins and outs of the position, and they're already solo on time here, that bishop to d4, you might as well play it. Looks like a reasonable idea, much more reasonable than all of these checks being allowed from the knight and the queen. So bishop d4, we have f captures on e5, f captures, and now knight captures on d4, e captures on d4, and queen captures on d4. We have king to e7, and now the key move behind all of this, if you don't play it, you might as well, not play this game at all. So where do we go? Where do we go now? The key move is queen to b4, queen to c5 with check, not queen to b4, queen to c5 check, as it forces the black king into the open. Here you are completely cutting the king off, and king to e8 will be met with knight b5. And now the king has nowhere to go, every square is covered, and knight to c7 check will happen, which will win the black queen. So after queen to c5 with check, king to f6 was played, and now rook to f1 check, king to g6, and again you have to be precise. Only one move that wins the game, and that is queen to e7. Beautifully played by Tal, saying that, okay, I've prevented rook to g8, and also I'm stopping the queen from defending the f-pawn, as then the bishop on b7 would hang. And if you go rook to f8, which looks like a reasonable idea, queen f6 check, and now you just go after that black king, and that's it. It's going to be a very, very quick checkmate. King h5, queen g5 will be checkmate. So after queen to e7, pawn to f5 by Mikhail, but again, it is not enough. Queen captures on e6, Tal continues the king hunt, king g7, queen e7 with check, king to g6, and now pawn to h4, preparing pawn to h5 to bring the black king, closer to the white pieces. Rook to a5, but it doesn't matter. Pawn to h5 with check. There are many other ways you could also play, but pawn to h5 is the cleanest. King captures on h5, and now queen to f7 with check. King to h4 and queen to f6 with check. King g3, queen to g5 with check, king to h2, and now queen to h4 check. We have king captures on g2, and now rook to f2 check. King to g1, and now I hope none of you are looking at queen to h2 checkmate and, forget about our good friend the queen guarding that h2 square. So, of course, not that. Knight to e2, and this is now checkmate. So, yeah, beautiful game by Tal, beautifully worked out. Like Tal said, he was ashamed of including this game in the magazine that he was authoring, as all of the work for this was pioneered by Alvis Vitolins, also a Latvian player, and he analyzed all of it. All of the variations were already worked out. Tal just used the manual. Everyone could do that, but yeah, maybe not everyone had instant access to it like Tal. Maybe, as both of them were from Latvia, so who knows. But yeah, definitely, very much liking this bishop to g5 line. I every time I play a rapid game, or I show a game that I've played, I always mention that after a6 I play the Adams attack or something like rook to g1. I did play some other moves like bishop to e3, bishop to c4, but here bishop to g5, even though it's the main line and the one I've seen the most, the one I've analyzed the most, for some reason I've never actually played it. I played it when I first started playing chess, but yeah, definitely thinking about returning to bishop g5 after seeing all of these incredible games. Of course, then you have to face the reality that your games might not end up like this, but with work and practice, anything is possible. So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you will give bishop to g5 a try against the Najdorf. Maybe play a few games like Tal. Beautiful games. I would like to thank E1 Check, Only Bullet, Random Pawn, Douglas Van Bethuisen, and Samuel Kamuli for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world, and in between continuing this short attack like the Magician Saga. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And remember, just because there's a pawn on a6 doesn't mean you can't put a piece on b5. That's it. See you soon.